All right, we've got the shape painting. How do we know? It's if I turn on the gray and turn on the white, it's basically the same, right? There are little gaps here and there, but those will get filled in with additional layers of paint. This is when I can make any last minute adjustments. I showed you how we used warp and distort. This eye still feels strangely pinched and small, so this is another technique you can do at this phase, because this is pretty clunky paint right now. I can just take a chunk. This is internal compositing, right? Hit Command J to duplicate it, just that eye. And then I can actually angle it, place it. I don't want it quite as big as the other eye because it is a 3/4 view. But so much of portraiture and likeness has to do with the distance between the eyes and the spacing across the face. So certain features you might need to cut out and replace. So notice how different that feels. And then I can merge them again, hold down Shift to select them both, and then Command E to merge them together, so it's all one layer. You do the same thing with the base of the nose. It got a little narrow as I was carving it up. So I'm going to Command J, duplicate it, Command T, and then play with placing it just a little differently. Maybe even distorting or warping it slightly. Just to kind of fit what you want, looking at the distances between things. So it looks a little bit better for the nose to my eye. So there are some issues with it. So I'm going to merge those together. And now the mouth, that's the top of the nose I want, but that mouth feels very small. Especially on this side, it needs to extend a little bit, so I can just grab the mouth. So I'm not changing the silhouette, just the placement of the features. Duplicate it, transform that. Hold down Shift, I can raise it up a little bit, I can lower it down. These are all just little minor placement issues, but they can really affect the overall likeness and believability. I could even try flipping that frown upside down. Ah, he's a much happier guy now. But if I were Waldo, I'd hate being searched for all the time, being an international fugitive, never being able to change my clothes. So I'm going to keep the frown just as my base painting. Now all of this is going to change a lot as I do additional layers. So let me merge them together. And then I'll just do some really quick additional opaque painting just to cover those seams a bit. Again, try not to get too detailed. All right, now what do we do? I took it from here to here, and now he's kind of facing more fully front than being angled off. Yeah, I think that works. So I'm going to delete these other layers. I don't think I need them. I'm going to keep my sketch there because it's always useful to go back to. I could even put my sketch on top and see how much I deviated from my original sketch. So the sketch is just a starting place. Now I'm going to turn that gray layer back on, and I'm going to lock my shape painting layer because I don't want to accidentally paint on it. And now I want to build on top of it with more refined painting. a refined painting layer. I'd say the most basic type of digital painting has a blank white background, has an underpainting layer, and then a refined painting layer. That's about as few as you can get away with. Now for the refined painting, I no longer want to use this basic brush, but what I can do at this step is to establish my own custom palette. So what I do is I pick some of the colors that I'm liking from my painting so far. I hold down Option to steal them. They can be skin tones, they can be eye color, they can be shadow tones for white, because I don't want to go to pure white if I can help it. I like this orange. I might even want to bring in some others from outside sources, right? And you can create a palette off to the side. You can notice what's not in your palette. I don't have any purples. I don't have any greens. Those can be things I might want to introduce or not. This is kind of a nice purple. I might throw it over here. Right? And almost all of these are what are called chromatic grays. They're paints or they're colors with a lot of gray in them. And these are so much better to use than, in my experience, than trying to use the color selector. Or even than trying to use the different like swatch libraries that are out there. So if you go to Windows and Swatches, you'll see a lot of these, and you can load your own, you can build your own, but these are pretty bold print-based colors, based on hex colors and Pantone colors. And so you want to find and establish your own palette. And it's pretty safe to just put it off to the side because those can always just be deleted later. So that is going to be my palette. I'm going to label it as my palette. And then I can just turn it off and on as I need it. I might even mark it with a color. Then I'm going to lock that. Make a new layer on top. This is going to be my refined paint layer. I'm doing a trackpad and a tablet. That's messing with my brain. All right, now with the refined paint layer, I don't want to use this simplistic brush anymore. I want to make my own brush. So I'm going to save my work, and I'm going to show you brush properties. This has a lot to do with how professional and how ambitious your digital painting can be. Now, Photoshop, this is 2021. A lot of you are running 2022. It can come with a lot of brushes, like watercolor brushes, bristle brushes, bubble brushes, grass brushes, canvas brushes. You can use those, you can play with them, but the easiest way, there's even halftone brushes. The easiest way for me to show you, the halftone brushes are actually really cool. The easiest way for me to show you how a brush works is to help you build your own, whether you end up using it or not. So this is a halftone brush. It will paint with halftones. Pretty nice. You know how I like halftones. So to do that, we have to open up a new file. So save your work, and then say File New. And we're going to make a Photoshop file. We can call it your name. So I'm calling mine Karl Spring 2022 Custom Brush. You want to change the image size. You can do this when you set it up, and I just missed that. And you want to change it to pixels being 1000 by 1000 pixels. This is just a good generic size for a brush design. Doesn't matter the resolution because we're doing this by pixels, not by inches. Okay, hit Command minus until you see it. Now I want to change my foreground color to solid black, my background color to solid white, keep it on the background layer. And I am just going to use my brush. Maybe it's my halftone brush. Maybe it's a regular brush. This is a good way to experiment with brushes. But I'm going to do it at about a 45-degree angle, and I'm going to scribble a lot. This gives you a really versatile brush. Think about what an actual paintbrush looks like, the variations in the length of the hairs. But mostly I'm just going to use my regular hard round brush. I'm going to use it at like a 90%, close to 90% opacity, at a slightly smaller size. And I'm just going to really give a lot of energy here. Maybe have a few stray marks here and there, like brushes sometimes do. I'm not going for an even airbrush. You can stipple if you want, little dots. But in general, you want it to be kind of a 45-degree cloud. Maybe a little bit wider than it is tall, like as an oval. Black on white. I'll show you how this works, and then you might understand kind of how to design your brush. I'll do some cross hatches, but I want to leave some texture in there. All right, so that's my brush. Gorgeous. Going to save that. That's Karl's custom brush. Save it into my assignment file, so I can always go back and modify a custom brush if I want. I can erase from it, because since it's a background layer, I can always erase from it and just get back to white. I'll just do a few erasers. Not too many. Something like that. All right, now I go to Edit, and I scroll down to where it says Define Brush Preset. And when I do that, it will save this as a brush. And I don't need PSD in the name. This is my custom brush for spring 2022. And then all of a sudden, whoa, it's changed to that brush. So if I make a new layer and I turn off my background, I can just stamp once with my stylus. Should be able to. What's going on? Oh, I'm on the eraser. And you'll find this brush at the very bottom of your options. And there's my brush, just as a stamp. Now, if I use this as a brush at this size, it's just going to fill up to black very quickly, right? So let me delete that layer. And now we're going to play with the brush. So let's take it down to a size like I've been painting with. Notice that I can't change the hardness. You can't change the hardness on custom brushes because they already have hard and soft edges built into them. But if I just paint with it, that doesn't look good. And that's because it's locked into its angle and it's not pressure sensitive. So now we play with brush properties. So if you go to Window and you go to Brush Settings, this will give you the brush properties for any brush tip that you use. And it works really well with a custom brush. You can go deep into this. They get pretty crazy. All the way down to like color mixing in the brush, like holding multiple colors in the brush at one time and randomly alternating between them. But we're going to keep it pretty simple. The first one is shape dynamics. It's at the top. Check it just like you're doing layer styles. Then you want to build in a size jitter. Jitter means that it's not always locked. It's going to vary a little bit, kind of randomly. A little bit like AI. I'm going to set the minimum diameter to be like 10%, so it doesn't go down to 0 pixels, right? Because that's not believable for a brush. The most important one to me is what's called the angle jitter. And the angle jitter is what will make it not just look like it's always locked at one angle. So now it looks like that, which is way more believable. It's like a charcoal brush, though I still don't have sensitivity for pressure and size. So how do I set that? Under Control, you're going to put pin pressure. And pin pressure will make it look like that. So you get size sensitivity. And then I might take my minimum diameter a little bit smaller. All right, so now if I zoom in on this brush, it's a fuzzy brush,